Hello, and welcome to another video from the YouTube channel, From Religion to Agnostic. Shem was one of the sons of Noah in the Hebrew Bible as well as in Islamic literature. The children of Shem were Elam, Ashur, Arphaxad, Lud, and Aram, in addition to daughters. Abraham, the patriarch of the Hebrews and Arabs, was one of the descendants of Arphaxad. Islamic literature describes Shem as one of the believing sons of Noah. Some sources even identify Shem as a prophet in his own right and that he was the next prophet after his father. Shem is mentioned several times in Genesis 5 through 11, as well as 1 Chronicles 1:4. Genesis 10:21 refers to relative ages of Shem and his brother Japheth, but with sufficient ambiguity to have yielded different English translations. The verse is translated in the King James Version as, "Unto Shem also, the father of all the children of Eber, the brother of Japheth the elder, even to him were children born." However, the New American Standard Bible gives, "Also to Shem, the father of all the children of Eber, and the older brother of Japheth, children were born." According to Genesis 10:22 through 31, Jewish Publication Society translation of 1917. 22 The sons of Shem, Elam, and Ashur, and Arpachshad, and Lud, and Aram. 23 And the sons of Aram, Uz, and Hul, and Gether, and Mash. 24 And Arpachshad begot Shelah, and Shelah begot Eber. 25 And unto Eber were born 2 sons, the name of the one was Peleg, for in his days was the earth divided, and his brother's name was Joktan. 26 And Joktan begot Almodad, and Shalef, and Hazarmaveth, and Jerah. 27 And Hadoram, and Uzal, and Diklah. 28 And Obal, and Abimael, and Sheba. 29 And Ophir, and Havilah, and Jobab, all these were the sons of Joktan. 30 And their dwelling was from Mesha, as thou goest toward Sephar, unto the mountain of the east. 31 These are the sons of Shem, after their families, after their tongues, in their lands, after their nations. 32 These are the families of the sons of Noah, after their generations, in their nations. And of these were the nations divided in the earth after the flood. Genesis 11:10 records that Shem was 100 years old at the birth of Arphaxad, 2 years after the flood, and that he lived for another 500 years after this, making his age at death 600 years. Excerpts from Genesis 11:10 through 27, Jewish Publication Society translation of 1917. Shem was 100 years old, and begot Arpachshad 2 years after the flood. Arpachshad lived 35 years, and begot Shelah. 13 And Arpachshad lived after he begot Shelah. Shelah lived 30 years, and begot Eber. Eber lived 34 years, and begot Peleg. Peleg lived 30 years, and begot Ru. Ru lived 32 years, and begot Serug. Serug lived 30 years, and begot Nahor. Nahor lived 29 years, and begot Terah. Terah lived 70 years, and begot Abram, Nahor, and Haran. And Haran begot Lot. In Jewish sources, the 1st century historian Flavius Josephus told a legendary, non-scriptural account that Shem's 5 sons were the progenitors of the nations of Elam, Assyria, Chaldea, Lydia, and Levantine, respectively. According to some Jewish traditions, example B Talmud Nedarim 32b, Genesis Rabbah 46:7, Genesis Rabbah 56:10, Leviticus Rabbah 25:6, Numbers Rabbah 4:8, Shem is believed to have been Melchizedek, king of Salem, whom Abraham is recorded to have met after the Battle of the Four Kings. A rabbinic document that surfaced in the 17th century, claiming to be the lost book of Jasher, provides some names not found in any other source. And so we go to more Jewish sources, the Jewish Encyclopedia. Biblical data. The eldest of Noah's sons, according to the position and sequence of the names wherever all 3 are mentioned together, example and Noah begot Shem, Ham, and Japheth, Genesis 32. In the table of nations in Genesis 10, however, Shem and his posterity are placed last, probably because the compiler of that record expected to trace his descendants far down into history, while those of the other 2 sons were confined to early ages. Shem's prominence among the peoples of pre-Christian times may be partially suggested by the ethno-geographical table of Genesis 10. For descendants see Semites. And we will later on in this video. In rabbinical literature. Although Shem is unanimously declared by the rabbis to have been the youngest son of Noah, Japheth in rabbinical literature, yet he is always named first, being the most important of the 3 brothers. Indeed, he was born circumcised, He was the ancestor of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. He was priest and prophet. And he was one of the 8 righteous who are mentioned twice in Genesis 11:10 and who were allotted a portion both in this world and in the world to come. Sanhedrin 69b, Tanhuma Yelam Medanot, Noah. Midrash, Haggadah, on Genesis 11:18, 11:10, ed. Schechter, 142, 186. Shem is styled, the Great One, Shem Rabbah, Sanhedrin 108b. According to Genesis Rabbah 30:6, it was Shem who offered the sacrifices on the altar after Noah came out of the ark, Genesis 8:20, as the latter, having been crippled by the lion, see Noah in rabbinical literature, was unfit for the priestly office. Noah gave to Shem the priestly garments which he had inherited from Adam, Numbers. Rabbah 6:6. Shem is extolled by the rabbis for his filial devotion in covering his father's nakedness, Genesis 6:23. Although his brother Japheth assisted in this praiseworthy act, it was Shem who suggested and began it, his brother not arriving on the scene until Shem was already on his way with the garment. Therefore Noah, in blessing these 2 sons, Genesis 6:27, declared, so the rabbis think, that the Shekinah was to dwell only in the tents of Shem, Yuma 10a, Tanhuma, Noah, 21, Genesis Rabbah 37:9, compare Jubilees, 7:9, where it is said that the garment was Shem's. Shem's reward for this deed is seen in the fact that the Jews, his descendants, cover themselves with the tallit and phylacteries, and remained untouched when the Assyrians, who also were descendants of Shem, were destroyed by an angel in the time of Hezekiah, Tanhuma, Yelam Medanot, LC, Exodus Rabbah 18:5. And so let's move on. In rabbinic literature they have under, legends, this is very interesting. Legends. The rabbis identify Shem with Melchizedek, king of Salem, who is termed a priest of the Most High, and who came to meet Abraham after the latter had defeated the 4 kings led by Chedorlaomer, Genesis 16:18-20. According to this account, Shem, as a priest, came to Jerusalem, with which Salem is identified by the rabbis, of which city he became king, it being the proper place for the establishment of the cult of Yahweh. He went to meet Abraham to show him that he was not angry with him for having killed the Elamites, his descendants, Midrash Haggadah on Genesis LC. Shem, however, forfeited the priesthood by mentioning in his blessing Abraham's name before that of God, so that God took his office from him and gave it to Abraham, Nedarim 32b, Perkei de Rabbi Eliezer 17. According to the Midrash Haggadah, LC, Shem himself asked God to give the priesthood to Abraham, as he, in his prophetic capacity, knew that he, Shem, would have no children eligible for the sacerdotal office. Contrary to the Perkei de Rabbi Eliezer, and Genesis Rabbah 43:10, the Midrash Haggadah explains that it was Shem who gave tithes to Abraham, showing that he recognized him as priest, see Genesis Rabbah 43:7. The rabbis point out that in certain cases Shem ranked as the equal of Abraham, so that the latter was afraid lest Shem might be angry at him for having slain the Elamites and might curse him, Genesis Rabbah 44:8, Tanhuma, Parashah Leclechan 19. In another instance God made a compromise between Shem and Abraham, namely, with regard to the name of the holy city, the place of the temple, which Abraham had called Jireh, Genesis 22:14, see Jehovah Jireh, and which Shem had called Salem. God united both names, and thus arose the name Jerusalem, Genesis Rabbah 56:16. Shem is supposed by the rabbis to have established a school, Bet HaMidrash, in which the Torah was studied, and among the pupils of which was Jacob. Later, Shem was joined by Eber, and the school was called after both of them. Besides, the school was the seat of a regular Bet Din, house to judge, which promulgated the laws current in those times. Thus Esau was afraid to kill Jacob, lest he should be condemned by the Bet Din, house to judge, of Shem and Eber. The Bet Din, house to judge, of Shem proclaimed the prohibition of and the punishment for adultery, and according to this law Judah condemned Tamar to be burned, Avodah Zarah 36b, Genesis Rabbah 63:7, 67:8. Shem's Bet Din, house to judge, was one of the 3 in which the presence of the Shekinah was manifested, Makkot 23b. At Abraham's death Shem and Eber marched before his bier, and they indicated the place that was suitable for his burial, Genesis Rabbah 62:6, according to the emendation of the text in Yakut, Genesis 1:10. At the division of the earth among the 3 sons of Noah, Shem's lot consisted of 26 countries, 33 islands, 26 out of 72 languages, and 6 out of 16 scripts. Thus Shem took 1 script more than either of his 2 brothers. And this was the Hebrew script, in which the Torah was written. The other 5 were Egyptian, Libyan, Assyrian, Chaldean, and Guzarati. Midrash HaGadol on Genesis 10:32. And so I will leave a link to this so you can read it in full, but it's very interesting at the very end after they explain their section on critical view. In the table given in Genesis 5:1 and 6:9, Shem is recorded as the father of 5 sons, among whom are named some that are not Semites. This catalogue, however, is geographical and not ethnic. In this list of Shem's descendants, Genesis 10, verses 22 and 23 are assigned to P, verse 24 to R, and verses 25 through 30 to J. In the last mentioned passage, the tendency to connect Shem and Eber is patent. In case you didn't pick up on it, they are referring to the supplementary hypothesis, and then leaves off with see Semites. Great idea, let's look at the Semites. Semites, Semitic peoples, or Semitic cultures was a term for an ethnic, cultural or racial group. The terminology is now largely obsolete outside the grouping, Semitic languages, in linguistics. First used in the 1770s by members of the Göttingen school of history, this biblical terminology for race was derived from Shem, one of the 3 sons of Noah in the book of Genesis, together with the parallel terms Hamites and Japhetites. In archaeology, the term is sometimes used informally as a kind of shorthand for ancient Semitic-speaking peoples. The term Semitic in a racial sense was coined by members of the Göttingen school of history in the early 1770s. Other members of the Göttingen school of history coined the separate term Caucasian in the 1780s. These terms were used and developed by numerous other scholars over the next century. In the early 20th century, the racialist classifications of Carlton S. Kuhn included the Semitic peoples in the Caucasian race, as similar in appearance to the Indo-European, Northwest Caucasian, and Kartvelian-speaking peoples. Due to the interweaving of language studies and cultural studies, the term also came to be applied to the religions, ancient Semitic and Abrahamic, and ethnicities of various cultures associated by geographic and linguistic distribution. And as for other sources on Shem, note, I will leave links to everything, as I always do for those wanting to research further on their own. Sunni Islam. Shem is regarded by scholars to be the successor to Noah, receiving prophetic knowledge, enlightenment, and leadership of his people. Shem was also one of the people whom God had Jesus resurrect as a sign to the children of Israel. Early Islamic historians like Ibn Ishaq and Ibn Hisham always included Shem's name in the genealogy of Muhammad. Shia Islam. In a Shiite tradition, Imam Ja'far al-Sadiq has narrated to his companions that Jibreel visited Noah close to the time of his death, relaying God's message, "O Noah, your prophethood has expired and your days are complete, so look to the great name, the inheritance, and effects of the knowledge of prophethood, and hand these over to your son, Sam, Shem, for I do not leave the earth except that there is a knowledgeable one by which obedience to me, God, can be recognized." And that will do it for today's video. Thank you all for watching. Have a great day, and be safe. If you enjoyed this video, please think about subscribing, as well as hitting the like and sharing would help out a lot. Thank you all, peace out, people.